Say Earth stopped spinning, right now. Not slowly, over millions of years. Just stopped. Dead still. You're picturing it already, aren't you? Everyone and everything flung off the surface, screaming into space like water off a spinning bike tire. So which is it? Is that actually what happens? Here's the strange part. That's not it at all. But before we get to what really happens, consider what this spin has quietly been doing for you every single day of your life. Every sunrise you've ever slept through, every night your body assumed would come, every season that arrived roughly on schedule, all of it has depended on this one motion, continuing, uninterrupted, for as long as there have been humans to notice or not notice it. Think of a spinning top. While it turns, it stands upright, stable, almost defying gravity. The instant it stops, it doesn't just rest peacefully, it topples. A figure skater pulling her arms in speeds up, arms out she slows. Her whole shape, her balance, is a function of that spin, not separate from it. Earth's rotation isn't decoration on top of a planet that would otherwise just sit there quietly. It's structural. And what actually happens if you switch it off is stranger and more consequential than anyone flying into space. So let's build this properly, from the ground up. Earth turns once roughly every 24 hours. That's the rotation we're talking about. The planet spinning on its axis like a ball turning in place. That turning is what carries you into sunlight in the morning and back out of it at night. It's the entire reason day becomes night becomes day, on a schedule so reliable you've never had to think about it. So here's the first obvious question. If the spin stopped, wouldn't half the planet just freeze in permanent darkness while the other half burns under an unmoving sun? Yes, that part, your intuition gets right. One face of the Earth would lock toward the sun and simply never look away again, while the other face would turn permanently from it, into cold and dark, forever. But that's only the first domino. It's the simplest, most obvious consequence. And it's just the foundation for everything stranger that follows. Picture that frozen globe now, one side glowing under an unmoving sun. That day side wouldn't just be warm, it would bake. Temperatures would climb far beyond anything any desert on Earth has recorded, because there'd be no nightfall to ever let the ground cool. And the night side, meanwhile, would sink toward the temperature of deep space, locked in permanent black cold, never once touched by daylight. But here's where it gets stranger. Between those two extremes, there'd be a thin strip of the planet, the boundary where day meets night, sitting in perpetual twilight. Not blazing, not frozen, just a narrow ring of survivable temperature circling the entire globe like a seam. If anything were going to live on this planet at all, it would have to live there, on that thin, livable line, because everywhere else would already be uninhabitable extreme. That's not a wild guess, either. We already see this pattern out among the stars. Many small, rocky planets discovered orbiting close to dim red stars end up exactly this way, one face locked permanently toward their sun. And on worlds like that, life, if it exists at all, would almost certainly crowd into that same narrow twilight band, the only strip of the planet not trying to kill it. But the sky isn't the only thing being reshaped. So is the water. And that's where this stops being a story about temperature and becomes a story about the entire shape of the planet. So where would all that water even go? Right now, Earth's spin is quietly doing something you've never had to notice. It's pulling the ocean, ever so slightly, outward at the equator. The planet itself isn't a perfect sphere. It bulges there, wider around the middle than pole to pole, because spinning things fling their mass outward, the same way pizza dough stretches wide when you spin it in the air. Take away the spin, and that outward pull disappears completely. Without that outward pull holding it at the equator, the ocean has no reason to stay there. Slowly, over time, that water would begin creeping toward the poles, drawn instead by gravity alone, no longer held wide by the planet's spin. It's a redistribution playing out over the entire surface of the Earth, water quietly abandoning the middle of the world. And here's the part that should stop you. As that water drains away from the equator, it would eventually expose the seafloor beneath it. A vast ring of new land circling the planet's middle. One long, dry, equatorial supercontinent, born entirely from an ocean walking away from it. But that same water has to land somewhere, and it lands at the poles, swelling the oceans there far beyond their current shores, drowning entire regions of high latitude under new, deep water. So picture the finished shape. A dry belt of exposed land around the equator, and rising, expanding seas swallowing everything north and south of it. The entire map of the world redrawn without a single continent moving an inch. And even that isn't the last of it, because now you have a planet locked into permanent extremes, one side scorched, one side frozen. And heat always wants to move from where it's abundant to where it isn't. That imbalance has to go somewhere, and on this version of Earth, it goes into the wind. Right now, our rotation gently spreads heat around the globe in a rhythm day after day, keeping any single point from overheating or overcooling for too long. Remove that rhythm, and the atmosphere is left trying to solve an impossible problem all at once, moving an entire hemisphere's worth of heat toward a hemisphere that never sees the sun. Researchers who've modeled planets locked in exactly this way find the atmosphere responds by generating enormous, sustained equatorial winds, jets tearing across the globe at speeds over 300 kilometers an hour. For comparison, Earth's fiercest hurricanes today, at their absolute worst, top out around that very same number. On this frozen Earth, that wouldn't be the ceiling. It would be the ordinary, everyday weather. And still, the deepest change is one you'd never see at all, because far beneath your feet, 2,000 kilometers down, something else depends on this spin too. Deep inside the planet, past the crust, past the mantle, there's a churning ocean of liquid iron, the outer core, flowing slowly in vast looping currents. Earth's rotation reaches all the way down there, organizing that churning iron into helical, twisting columns through something called the Coriolis effect, the same force that curves hurricanes on the surface, just acting on molten metal instead of air. That organized churning is not a side effect, it's the engine. It's what generates Earth's magnetic field in the first place. So take away the spin, and that deep organizing force weakens with it. The churning wouldn't stop instantly, but it would falter, lose its structure, slowly wind down. And as it does, the magnetic field it generates would begin fading with it, not overnight, but across thousands of years, quietly dimming until it's gone. And that field is not a small thing to lose. It's the invisible shield wrapped around the entire planet, deflecting the charged particles constantly streaming off the sun. Without it, that radiation would reach the surface directly, and over a very long time, it would begin stripping away the atmosphere itself, the way solar wind has already stripped Mars down to a thin, barely there wisp of air. So, what actually happens if Earth stops spinning? Nobody goes flying into space. That fear, the one you probably walked in with, simply isn't how any of this works. The rotation speed at the equator is only around 1,040 miles an hour, nowhere close to the roughly 25,000 miles an hour it would actually take to escape Earth's gravity. That part of the intuition was always wrong. But everything else changes, and changes completely. The sun stops rising and setting, and instead locks in place, baking one hemisphere and abandoning the other to permanent frozen night, with only a thin ring of survivable twilight between them. The oceans stop resting quietly at the equator and begin a slow migration toward the poles, draining the middle of the planet into a dry, exposed supercontinent, while the higher latitudes disappear beneath rising new seas. The winds stop behaving like weather and start behaving like a planet-scale engine straining to solve a problem it was never built for. And deep below, the iron heart of the Earth stops churning the way it always has, and the shield it was quietly generating begins, slowly, to fade. None of that is what you walked in expecting, but that's the answer. The spin was never just about day and night. It was drawing the shape of the oceans, setting the temper of the climate, and generating the invisible shield that makes the surface of this planet survivable at all. Sit with that for a moment. This one motion, a planet simply turning in place, turns out to be load-bearing for almost everything else. Not a background detail humming along beneath the important parts of Earth, but one of the important parts itself, maybe the most important one. And it has never stopped. Not once, not for an instant, in the roughly 4.5 billion years since this planet first came together. Every sunrise anyone has ever witnessed, every wave that has ever reached a shore, every compass needle that has ever pointed north, all of it exists inside one long, unbroken motion that has simply never paused long enough for any of this to unravel. Every living thing that has ever existed has only ever known a world where the spin holds. Not because it's guaranteed to, not because anything requires it to. It simply always has, and so far that has been enough. And maybe that's the quietly remarkable part. You've gone your entire life standing on top of one of the most consequential motions in the solar system, and never once had to think about it. It never announced itself. It never asked for your attention. It just kept turning, underneath every plan you've ever made, every morning you've ever woken into. That's usually how the biggest things work. Not loud, not obvious, just constant. The ones so fundamental they disappear into the background, mistaken for simply the way things are, when really they're the reason things are anyway at all. So the planet keeps turning, and we'll keep doing this. Looking closely at the quiet, constant things nobody thinks to ask about, the ones sitting in plain sight, right underneath everything else. There's always another one of those waiting. This has just been the first spin of that thread.